So this is all about the main parts of a flower and their importance. So now every part and every important we should know. In exam we don't know what they will ask, but the another names also remember. So together of this sepals we used to call it as what? Another name of this together we used to call it as calyx, and same way these petals together we used to call it as petals together we used to call it as corolla. So the importance is most important. Understand what is the importance of petals, sepals, and as well as a receptacle. So receptacle is a base which will carries all the flowers. For example, sometimes you might be remove all the sepals and all the sepals petals from the flower. Then basement which is in your hand, you might be see that is what like a stick-like substance which is carried out as make to give the basement support to all these parts of the flowers. That is what we used to call it as receptacle. So now if you see here, some flowers having only one sex organ, either it may contains stamen or it may contains what? Carpels. So this is only we used to call it as either any one, then it is called as unisexual flowers. Unisexual flowers. So if you take examples, please note it down. Can anybody say examples of unisexual flowers, please? Kavya, Kumaira, anybody examples of unisexual flowers? Prahasini, papaya you can take. So papaya is the example of unisexual papaya, and you can take another example is watermelon. So watermelon and papaya are the unisexual flowers. So next, you can keep heading here, unisexual flowers. So what is the unisexual flowers, guys? The flowers which contains only one sex organ, either stamen or carpels is only called as unisexual flowers. So now, some flowers having both the sex organs, that is what we can say. What is that called as, guys? What is that called as?
Bisexual
flowers. Bisexual flowers. So you can write it. So what do you mean by bisexual flowers? You can write the flowers which contains both the organs, both sex organs. That is what we can say. What is that? Stamens and as well as what? Stamens and as well as carpel are called bisexual flowers. Are called as bisexual flowers. This is Krutika. Understand Krutika? Pranav, Himaira. So examples. Can anybody say examples which is most famous in your home? Also, you might be having bisexuals. Anyone?
The hibiscus.
Yes.
Hibiscus.
Very good. So the flowers of hibiscus, mustard plants, you can say flowers of hibiscus, or you can say chinas, hibiscus, and you can say mustard flowers, everything, mustard plant flowers, all are examples of this one. Okay, hibiscus and mustard flower plant. So this is what you have to remember this. Now you can see this is it's all about the parts of the flower. So now next concept which we are going to study is, as I said you, if you want to form the seeds, what is the ultimate goal of this sexual reproduction in plants, guys? They need to produce their new offsprings, but they will produce in the form of what? They will make in the form of what? The new offsprings of the plants we used to call it as what, guys? That is what we used to call it as seeds. So whatever it is taking place with the help of stamen or with the help of carpel or everything, their ultimate goal is they need to produce a new seeds of a plant which will form when male gamete will react with what? Will fuse with the female gamete. Is it yes or no, guys? And they will produce the new offsprings. That is what we used to call it as new seeds. Means to produce the new generation. So this the male gametes present in the pollen grains unites or fertile with the female gametes which is present in the ovule. So now how it will take place? So this fertilization completely, do you understand? This reproduction in flowers will be carried out by two stages. So this male gamete, how it will fuses with the female gamete to produce the new offsprings, it will be carried by two stages. The first stage is happening is pollination. What is the first step, guys? In the flowers, the reproduction in flowers, pollination, and the second step is only called as fertilization. Remember everyone. So what is the stages of sexual reproduction in flowers? One is pollination and the second one is fertilization. So now let us come to today's class. We will see first one alone, that is what? Pollination. So now can anybody say what do you mean by pollination? You might be already know that. You're already aware of it. What do you mean by pollination? I already told you while I'm explaining the standard. What do you mean by pollination?
The transfer of pollen grains.
Yes, the transfer of male sex gametes. That is what you should say. Understand? So the transfer of male sex gametes to the what? To the female sex gametes. That is what we used to call as pollination. So if you need to produce the seeds, then what is the necessary step? So the male gametes, male sex gametes, which are present in where? The pollen grains, understand, in the anther, they must be carried out to the stigma of a carpel. Then this carried out process only, transforming these pollen grains to the stigma of a carpel, is only called as pollination. You understand? So a male gamete must combine with the female gamete. Then first of all, the pollen grains must be carried to the first part of a female reproductive system. That is what we used to call as stigma. So then only the reproduction process will carried out. So now let us see these pollination, how it will be takes place and where it will takes place and all. So if we take here, these pollination usually will takes place in two ways. One is self-pollination, another one is cross-pollination. So what do you mean by pollination, guys? First of all, the transfer of, what it is? The transfer of pollen grains, that is only called as male reproductive organs. The pollen grains from the anther, of a, from the anther, you can write, from the anther to the stigma of a carpel is called what? Pollination. So now again, this pollination is how many types? Pollination is how many types?
Two types, sir.
Two types. So pollination is again two types. So simply you can say pollination. Somebody will ask you pollination. Then what you can say, guys, in a single line? Can anybody say? It is just what? What do we
Transfer of pollen grains.
understanding? Just we will take place. Understanding the pollen grains are carried from the anther to the stigma. That's all. Even no need to say male or female reproductive system. Pollen grains are carried from the anther to the stigma of the flower. That's all. You can take, for example, I will write in the form of equation. So you will take anther, and here what will takes? What will takes, guys? Stigma we can take. So stigma, and middle, what is that? Pollen grains. That's all. So this line indicates the definition of pollination. Okay. So carried out the pollen grains from anther to the stigma is called as pollination. So these pollination basically will be two types. One is self-pollination and another one is, what is that, guys? Cross-pollination. Okay, so it is not a new thing to you. Already lower classes also you people are studied. So now, first of all, you should remember these pollination is carried out by not flower to flower. The even same flower they contains, they won't carry out the pollination. So they need some external help. So that is what, so the pollination is carried by, basically we can say birds, understanding, bees, that is what we can say insects. Understand? Insects and butterflies.
Sir, only in
Yes,
cross pollination this is happening, no, sir.
even self-pollination also, it will take somebody should go and they should be. I will explain you can see. Okay, so now wind and water. So these are the types of pollination. We can say even water pollination, wind pollination, insects pollination, and birds pollination. So now let us see here. As we know, this pollination is two types, which is carried out by birds, insects, and as well as wind and water. So now first of all, if it comes to here, if you take first the self-pollination, if you notice it, what do you mean by self-pollination means? Remember, the pollen grains from the anther of a flower are transferred to the stigma of a same flower. This is what we used to call as. If it is the pollen grains is transforming from anther to the stigma of a same flower, then this is called as self-pollination. Do you understand, everyone? So now, if the pollen grains is transforming from the anther of a flower of one plant to another plant, do you understanding? One plant to another plant, then another plant of another plant stigma. That is what we used to call as. What we used to call, guys? That is only called as cross-pollination. So, in this self-pollination, basically due to the wind, or else normally we can say that when the anther will touch the stigma during normal cases also, then the self-pollination will take place. For example, I will show you. You can see. So. Even I told you to, I will show you the tulip, correct? Yeah, 1 minute. I will show you the tulip also. You can see how the tulip is surrounded by a male reproductive organs. That is what we can say anthers. So this is the picture which you people might be see. Even in tulip flowers, if you're having, you can see, this is, you can see here, this is the tulip, this middle part, what we used to call, guys, this is only called as female reproductive organ. Understand, everyone? So now surrounding a brown color one, have you noticed the brown color one? This is what we used to call as. What is this called as? They are only called as a male reproductive organs, which you people are seeing here. So this is usually a tulip flower. A tulip flower which is covered by, a carpel is covered by, surrounded by many brown stamens. Okay, guys? That is what you have to remember. So now let us see the self-pollination and as well as a cross-pollination will represent with a single picture. So now that is all we'll study for the today's class. So now you can see, then we'll continue from here in the tomorrow, who is helping for the self-pollination and cross-pollination and everything in detail. So now, as I said, what do you mean by self-pollination, guys? And the pollen grains of the pollen grains from the anther will be carried to the stigma of a same flower. Understand? Stigma of a same flower. That is what we used to call as self-pollination. Now, the pollen grains of another flower, understanding one flower, will be transferred or carried out to the stigma of another flower. Stigma of another flower. Then that is what we used to call as cross-pollination. Do you understand, everybody? But this another flower means not different flower, same similar plant. Do you understand? That is the most important thing. So similar flower plant, then only it is called as cross.
So similar species, sir.
Now, similar flower, like in the sense of, for example, see, same plant having more than one flower. Yes or no, Padmosni? Same plant, it might be having more than one flower. Yes or no? Or else different plants you can take same kind of species. What you said is correct. So now it might be having one flower here and it might be having one flower here, or else the same plant is having another flower here. So now from here to here will transfer also, it is called as cross pollination. Or from this plant to this plant flower will carry out the pollen grains, then also it is called as cross pollination. Understand? So it must be a similar plant, a flower and the another similar plant, which is only we used to call as cross-pollination. Okay. So this is what we used to call as self-pollination and as well as cross pollination. So this pollination usually done by insects, birds, winds, and water. But if we take here, insects only will help in cross pollination. So that we will study in detail in the next class. So if we'll take here how these pollen grains will be carried out from the insects with the help of insects from one flower to the another flower, and same flower basically same flower during a wind or normal time, if this anther will be touched to the stigma, basically they are very surrounding by the stigma, correct, this female reproductive system. So easily with the normal wind also this pollen grains will be carried out to the anther of a same flower to the pollen this stigma, so that the fertilization will takes place. And if one plant to another plant it should takes place, then definitely they need to carry it out by wind or else insects or else the birds or else water. Something should be helpful, need to help them to do the cross pollination. So this is all about what is cross pollination and what is self-pollination. Now, why this cross-pollination will take place, how these insects will help them, that is all we'll study. Why the insects will help them, that is we'll study in the next class. You might be already know that. Usually the insects will come for what? Honeybees and all. They will come to the flowers to suck the nectar. That is what we can say honey. To suck the nectar from the plant. And even some birds from the hibiscus. Have you seen, guys? Hibiscus plants and all, down bottom part, like where we used to having a sepals, like a receptacle, there it will be like a honey like thing. Like this, if you suck it, it will be like very tasty also. You might be know that, you might be not know, but we people, when I'm a kid, we used to do that. We used to take this hibiscus flowers and we used to suck the bottom part. It will be having a like a honey like thing. That is what we can say nectar. Even some birds used to suck that. Small birds used to suck with which is having a long beak. You might be seen in the even some photos also. So long beak birds, they used to suck the nectar from the flowers. So they only will help for this cross pollination. That everything in detail we'll study tomorrow. So this is what the first step of reproduction in flowers. That is what we used to call as pollination. And in tomorrow class we'll study what is fertilization, and as well as next formation of fruits and as well as seeds. How this flowers after fertilization will lead to the formation of fruits and as well as seeds. And after that, once the seeds will be germinating, what will happen, guys? The new generation or new offsprings of the plants will produce. So till there we will study. That is all. Tomorrow maximum will finish the reproduction in flowering plants, and later we'll shift to the sexual reproduction in animals. So with this I will stop. Hope you all understand. Thank you all of you. We'll meet tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.